Today's this session is towards an integrated energy grid. We have today's this session is 6 speakers today, and I'm sure there will be different perspective and topics towards integrated energy grid, and we'll hear from all the. We will. I don't know about the timing situation. Topics. Let me see. Towards integrated energy grid, and no. Hear from all the. I'm sure we will. I don't know about the timing. It was from 2:30 to 4. So. Oh, here she comes. I'm sure she will.
35 minutes, yes.
By 5.
5. Okay. So from 4 to 5. So we are on time. No problem. New time. So we'll say about 10-12 minutes for each speaker. I think that should be that should leave us some time to discuss and take some questions from the audience here. So we'll start with Mr. Dr. Shankar Shrestha. He's okay. And it has been curtailed because I was. It's 7 minutes per speaker. All right? So we need to discuss more. I think there will be more question and answers. If we go up to 5, we'll have plenty of time for discussion. So our first speaker is a panelist, Dr. Shankar Shrestha, Executive Director, Nepal Development Research Institute. The floor is yours.
To directly go into my deliberation. Maybe I will take 5 minutes. So since many things have been discussed in the inaugural and plenary sessions as well about this need for the regional energy grid. So this is one of the background slides that highlights the need of the growing demand for the energy in the South Asian region. And unfortunately, mostly this has been covered by the fossil fuels, which has a severe greenhouse gas emissions impact. So this is a clear indication that the regional cooperation is needed so that we can not only switch on to the cleaner energy, but also deal with the sustainability and various issues in this region. So let me go briefly about the benefits of the integrated. This is the very generic slides. You all know these things, but I just want to focus a bit on a point-wise. The first one is a seasonality. So we are aware that, especially in Nepal, in the summertime, we have a 2 to 3 times access hydropower electricity, energy generation than the drier time. And coincidentally, this graph shows that the peak demand in the Bangladesh area, for example, this is just the example, is in the April, May, June, which in that time Nepal has a surplus electricity. So this is just a simple example. If we have a regional cooperation, the surplus energy from the one country in this region can be shared to the another country. So this similarly for the other India, Pakistan, and the other scenario. And one of the things in the seasonality is in the short term, of course we are also, and Nepal is also importing some electricity from energy from India, but In the longer term, I think we will be in the surplus all the year round. So one of the strategy could be in the certain period that I mentioned, there can be a energy sharing between the summer and the dry seasons like that. And we can use the facilities of the India for an instant, like we can use the India as a reservoir, whereas in the future, in the long term, after the Nepal has a surplus energy all the year round, then the hydropower of Nepal can act as a battery storage. So this is one of the modality of collaboration in the future. The next point is the energy mix. Of course, Nepal and Bhutan are rich in the hydropower, and this can complement the solar and wind energy that's in the other regions such as Bangladesh and India and others. And we know that the hydropower is a bit stable source of energy, whereas the solar and wind is a variable, that we don't have a 24 hours solar and wind energy. So such gaps can be fulfilled if there is a proper energy mix between the hydropower and the variable, this solar and wind energy. So this will also help in the grid stabilization, because if there is only solar and wind, that is not sufficient for the 24 hours, then during the shortest time there can be a problem in the grid stabilization. Whereas if the hydropower is complementing this, then it can be a 24 hours stable energy source. So others are just the outcome of this regional, this initiative. For example, if those who are dominant in hydropower, dominantly Nepal and Bhutan, we can have a big revenue generation, whereas using the hydropower of Nepal and Bhutan, India, Bangladesh and other countries, they can have a much energy in the much less cheaper than the other source of energy, such as fossil fuels and so on. And moving on to the barriers, this is very simple, that the economic barrier, one of the economic barrier is the absence of competitive power markets. This we have been realizing since many years, and most of the this markets, it's not like an open free market, but it's like more like a government to government initiatives is dominant at the present. Similarly, there is a technological barrier about we need to synchronize the grids, and also there is in the South Asian region, there is not the sufficient infrastructure for this regional integration. Similarly, there is this very clear regulatory aspect. We don't have the regional policy, regulatory framework, and most of the regulations, it's like a controlled access from the state rather than the open, or there's less access to the third party and so on. And similarly, in the institutional barrier, we don't have regional institutions to guide these initiatives. For example, in the inaugural session, there was many gave the examples of ASEAN and European Union and others, but they have a very good regional institution for the energy. This is missing in our region. Having said that, there are some of the initiatives are going good. For example, but unfortunately, as also discussed in the inaugural session, the SAARC is like a bit behind at this moment. There's a gap after the SAARC summit in Kathmandu. But the other initiatives are coming, like the BIMSTEC or the BBIN and so on. So in the bilateral or some one way or the other, there are some good examples of power trade happening, but we are still yet to achieve a bit elaborative on the regional side. So this is a bit old data from the 2019. This was presented by our Nepal's Managing Director of the Nepal Electricity Authority, Mr. Kulman Gising. So after this, I think there is recently there has been a one, the talks are ongoing about the Sunkosi 3 project, hydropower trade from Nepal to Bangladesh, and also the Upper Arun hydropower, that is Nepal and India. And of course, in this both initiatives, India is a dominant player, or the electricity to Bangladesh is coming through the India in this time. Yeah, okay. And I think this is one of the a good example we can take, because the electricity trading from Nepal to Bangladesh via India, this is going in a very positive note. I think such type of collaboration need to be continued for the future trade as well. Yasha, this is just a picture of the current trades in the energy trades, and also some planned in electricity trades in the South Asian region. Yeah. Yeah, these are just, so you can see here that most of the trades, these are dominantly bilateral. We need to build on this to go to a more regional integration. So these are the, some of, maybe this will come at the end, but just I want to highlight this. We need to build on the bilateral trade between two countries and also give access to the third party. Any other countries should be allowed to use the transmission lines of the other countries who have this service. And we need to build the regional trust, of course, and also like the ASEAN Center of Energy or some center in the European Union, we need to build such independent center to provide the information, technology, and expertise. And one or two, we need to start with one or two good examples. And if these models are well taken by the all the stakeholders, then this can be replicated. So I gave an example of Nepal, Bangladesh, India, Sunko City project, which will materialize soon. There's such type of initiatives we need to scale up, you know, to get a more broader regional cooperation. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sesta. You have very rightly pointed out that during the peak summer time, you have excess electricity. And if all your projects are in built, then as you said, you will have excess electricity all through the year, and that will be a great source of your foreign currency earning, and you can export those electricity to India and Bangladesh. Similarly, Bangladesh during the winter actually has quite a bit of excess electricity capacity. And winter time, because of heating, North India and Nepal, Bhutan, they require more electricity, and we can, export back to those countries during those time. Now I'll invite Mr. Richard Kanowski, Deputy Country Director, Frederick Ebert State Fund, India Office, India. You got about 7 minutes.
Thank you very much. Let's hope that I will stay in time. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Dr. Shankar. I think especially with the technical details, you set the tone, because I have to admit, I'm not a technician. I'm not an academician. So I will talk about the topic more generally. But so your introduction helped a lot because I can definitely build up on the things you said. I will focus on at least 3 dimensions from my point of view when it comes to integrated energy grid here in the South Asian sub-region. And I mean, as someone who is coming from abroad, it's very interesting for me to see every time that according to the hearts and the minds of the people, South Asia is, I would say, the most connected region worldwide when it comes to the feeling of the people. But as it was pointed out several times today in the 2 big sessions, technically spoken, and when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to agreements and so on, in these very challenging topics these days, it's the least integrated region. And I mean, I don't have to ask the question why here, because I mean, you are all experts on this topic, but I think this is something we definitely have to face and we have to build up because before we don't solve, I would say, this question, I mean, everything in development, especially in terms of renewables, in terms of energy security, will be brightly discussed, but maybe not solved. So the first dimension I will to refer is of course the political dimension. I mean, from my point of view, and it was between the lines, but as well officially outspoken, and I think this is a very interesting point, definitely, is there really some kind of vision, some kind of narrative when it comes to the sub-region according to renewables and as well to energy security? I've got the feeling, of course, bilaterally, there is these approaches. I mean, you pointed it out, Dr. Shankar, right now, but as well in the discussion, it was, we've got several agreements bilaterally, and there is as well some trilateral agreements, but I mean, when we really want to focus on the sub-region in general, so the official definition, for example, in the borders of the SAARC states, we shouldn't lose anyone behind. And this is something I want to point out as well. I've got the feeling these days, I mean, I know it is sometimes a bit crucial, and I mean, the developments are sometimes very challenging, but I'm sure my distinguished colleague will say more about it later. But what I was missing today definitely was as well the Afghanistan perspective. So we are talking about so many other countries in the region, and this is totally fair. But if we want really to discuss some kind of mutuality when it comes to energy security in the region, which can lead to a more prosperous economy, then I think we should take Afghanistan as some important player in the region in account as well. The second thing is, in the political dimension, from my point of view, is that, of course, if you want to have an integrated energy grid, you definitely need more harmonized policies on this topic. And coming back to my first thesis, I think this is something the government in the region, it doesn't matter if it is in SAARC or multilaterally on the prime minister's level or whatever, have to discuss these topics and bring it more on the table. I guess this is so crucial here because, I mean, of course, this whole region, I mean, is one of the vulnerables when it comes to climate change. I mean, a climate change you didn't cause, but we all have to live with the situation. And I think if we really want to reach a turning point when it comes to energy, because, I mean, this region is, in a positive way, energy hungry because, I mean, economy is developing, then, of course, we need as well more connection between the governments in the region to come to a mutual agreement how to work on these topics. And then, I would say, from a political dimension, when you've got this mutual understanding, then you can think as well about an integrated energy grid. I would say it could be the last part of a political path how to work really on these topics. And I would say, coming to back again to the political dimension, it's definitely a question of narratives and a shared vision where we want to go in this region according to climate change and as well energy security. The second thing is, and I'm not so good in these terms, so I will really briefly tell about it, it's of course the technical dimension, because I'm sure there's many more people in this room who know more about the technical dimension of an integrated energy grid. But I mean, there's harmonizing again, so the question of technical surrounding, I mean, the grid itself, so what is the technical baseline? I mean, we've got different systems, so this is something you can, on the policy level as well, harmonize, definitely. But it's as well about financial support, for example, when it comes to risk capital, or as well, this is totally fine, 2 minutes I will reach, when it comes to risk capital and the support of the so-called developed states. Because, I mean, it's as well a technical question. If I don't have the money to invest in new techniques which bring which are able to literally transport the energy, then we can think about it, but nothing will happen. So I think this is as well super important. I mean, we've got in Germany, we've got these examples, for example, with KfW, but I mean, there is lots of any other or lots of more donors who are exactly in this field, and I think this is as well important. And honestly, I mean, the so-called Western world should take a risk sometimes a bit more on this, definitely, because it's not only in gaining money back, it's as well going into risk for a greater good. So impact investment, for example, I guess it's very important as well. And the third dimension from my point of view is, of course, the business dimension. I mean, maybe you're surprised that I'm saying let them make money, of course. I mean, energy distributors, I mean, it's a business, so they want to earn money. And then we need more incentives from my point of view from the state as well, because of course it has to do with, not with welfare, but I mean, it has a social dimension, definitely. So, but on the other hand, I mean, if you really want to have an integrated power grid here in the region, then of course all the energy suppliers as well should have the chance to make money, and maybe it's then necessary to have these incentives as well. Let's stop here. 7 minutes, way too short. Thank you for listening.
You rightly pointed out the political aspect and the aspiration of the leaders for cooperation, which is very important, and one of the reasons why SAARC was not that successful, or our regional cooperation was not successful, because of the lack of political will, I should say. But there has been some good success bilateral issues, Nepal, India, Bhutan, India, Bangladesh, India. It took 25 years of discussion to first electricity to move from India to Bangladesh, that long. So that is very important. And of course, we know, the Indian electricity that is coming to Bangladesh is the HVDC, because of the lack of synchronization of technical, the frequency and other things, the different Indian network and our network. So that's a big problem in the regional level. If you don't have the same technical synchronization, then it cannot flow freely. So you have to go for high voltage DC transmission. Thank you for your presentation. And now I will request Mr. Alias Wardak. Is that right? Yeah. All right. Independent regional power integration expert, Afghanistan. So that's his bread and butter, regional integration. All right. Let's hear from Mr. Wardak.
So thanks a lot, Mr. Chair. And thanks, first of all, for inviting me. I'm the only person who is representing Afghanistan, as rightly mentioned by Mr. Kanievsky. I think, to be honest, I was a bit disappointed this morning that no one mentioned Afghanistan. It's not about the regime that is there. It's about 40 million people, and that are part of this region, firstly. And I'm not complaining. These are the facts. And when we talk about regional integration very close to Dhaka, that is this Grand Track Road, this concept came from an Afghan, Shai Suri, centuries back. Yeah. Having said that, I'm very thankful to see the Center for Policy Dialogue to inviting me and to talk on this matter of regional cooperation. As mentioned, of course, I have a different perspective, a more pragmatic, although I may exclude some of the countries at this point of time. The question is, first of all, I want to emphasize on one aspect. Integration, but I would like to talk, in terms of South Asia, I would like to refer to a seamless cooperation than integration. That's because integration means a supranational body like the European Union has, which is not very supported, and we are not ready for such an institution. Yeah, meaning I'm referring to cooperation. And the question is now, are we really cooperating, or do we have already a division at this point of time? Yeah, meaning you have the 8 countries of the SAARC, yeah, on the one side, and the known or main center constraint within the SAARC, yeah, over the 3 decades. And then you have we can now talk about sub-regional institution, yeah, in order to take a pragmatic way, which is supported from within the region and also from developing partners, which is the BBIN approach. That excludes two countries, at least, Afghanistan and Pakistan at this point of time, yeah? But the advantage could be that at least we could set practical steps towards a market, a sub-regional market, with the precondition that at the point of time, it should be expanded, yeah? Why do I bring up this argument of sub-regional? Although for my own country, it's not a big advantage, yeah? Because SAARC, I mean, this is my understanding, and what I know, SAARC would not function also in the next coming years. One is, the reason is the current situation in Afghanistan, and the second is the known issue between India and Pakistan. That was an impediment towards SAARC, yeah? We can make diplomatic statements, but this is a fact on the ground, yeah? And then you have this different approaches. On the one side, you have Pakistan and the CPEC project, which looks towards Central Asia, to our connectivity to Afghanistan, yeah? And on the other side, you have the big player in this BBIN region, which is India. India, this is my impression based on my research and what I know, is not very supportive currently of SAARC. Meaning, India is looking towards BBIN. And the advantage of BBIN is, at least, it's not very much geopolitical, but more geo-economic, the perspective, first of all. Second, it is in compliance with with India's view as the major player in the region of India's Act East policy, and then choosing the BIMSTEC platform. One indication is that India is now setting up in Bangalore the BIMSTEC Energy Center. Yeah? Based on my pretty recent research, which I did for the European Union, this is my understanding of the situation. Yeah? Looking into the developments of the last 8 months, there is a first step towards trilateral agreements between India, Bangladesh, and Nepal, which is a great step. Yeah? Another aspect is that when we look into the figures, since 2014, we have an increase of trade between the BBIN countries of 2.2 times in comparison to 2014. Yeah? And due to this geoeconomic perspective, there is also more focus on achieving, how to achieve NDC targets within the sub-region. That could be also a trigger, yeah? Looking into Bangladesh, Bangladesh has a vision of achieving achieving 40% share or in the energy mix in 2040 from 41 from renewable energy. How do they want to achieve it? Is it viable to, considering the land constraints of this country? No. So it could be regional cooperation within the BBIN at this stage could be a viable solution for that. Yeah? And I have to add another benefit is that, of course, you have less investment costs, and secondly, when there is no political or no major political constraints, I think the countries could, supported by development partners, come up with a concept of how to work on joint regional projects. The European Union has a concept of project of common interest. Yeah, this is something which the sub-region could look into it. But in the long term, in order to avoid any misunderstanding, exclusion of Afghanistan and Pakistan would not help the region, because the region has to expand. It's not about energy, but it should have a spillover effect on other aspects like trade. Yeah, and there, the Central Asian markets, and then from Central Asia up to the other regions of Europe, this is also an option which needs to be considered. Therefore, why I'm proposing it, because it's a viable solution at this point of time. And the long term, of course, the approach of SARC on the one side, but it can work simultaneously. BIMSTEC on the other side, why not? This is possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Warak. Before I comment on your presentation, I congratulate you for cricket match. Afghanistan playing very well.
That indicates the resilience of Afghans.
They might, actually, there's a very good chance they might make the semi-final. Yeah. And we'll be pitching for them. I couldn't agree any more with you, because I have been working in this regional corporation and energy sector for last several years, since '95. The approach towards a top-down approach, like SARC had been a top-down approach. You take all the countries and then you make the network. That doesn't work. The approach has to be bottom-up. So you start making subnets and then you make the big network. So that is the approach, and that is working actually. That is now being successful. We have bilateral, and the most principal player here is, of course, India. India being in the middle, nobody can have any cooperation without India's cooperation. So they hold the trump card. So that is there. But I think BBIN is a good approach, and we are heading towards it, Nepal and Bhutan, through India. India has already cross-border, they have a policy of cross-border trade of energy, which was, initially it was very restrictive, but then there were a lot of objections from the countries, Bangladesh and Bhutan, Nepal, and they have modified it. In 2019, they have modified it. Now it is more conducive for a regional cooperation here in this area. Thank you very much for your insightful comments and observations. Now I will invite Mr. Harmud Behrain. He's project manager, project for support of Climate and Development Partnership, GIZ, Bangladesh.
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for providing me the floor. And I would like to thank CPD as well to have invited me as a panelist. I clarified I am not able to talk about region connectivity. They said even if you are not able to talk to it, talk about your subject, which is the just energy transition. So I will a little bit talk about the basics of just energy transition and why it is so important for us. But I would like to start a little bit with the subject about which you already talked. It was about the fact that it seems that this region is the least integrated region in the world. And I think, like me, many others have been on the regional climate change summit, the first regional climate change summit of South Asia, which took place here at the same place 2 months ago, where we saw in the beginning there was no Pakistan present. All the other countries were there, not Pakistan. I was sitting with all the members of the parliament in one session. I clarified, I had the same post like now before in Pakistan, and then this discussion broke out. Why are they not here? With climate change, with such huge problems, why do we have conflicts where we have much more nuances with the climate change? We have to cooperate much more. Later at the end, Sherry Rehman, the climate change minister of Pakistan, gave a presentation. And this time I'm very happy to see that my old colleagues of Pakistan as well here. Sorry for this long beginning, I try to make very short. So general just energy transition is embedded into just transition, which is much broader than the just energy transition. The just transition is nowadays the golden bullet really to fight climate change, to decarbonize the economy, and at the same time assure that social aspects are respected and the economy grows as well. That means when we go into a transition of the economy, when many people maybe in the fossil fuel sector might lose their jobs, that there are possibilities that they learn new jobs or that they have to learn a lot of new jobs. Just transition is much more because it considers all the sectors of the economy where greenhouse gas emissions are emitted, like transport, like the industry, building sector, even agriculture. And so the good thing is that it really avoids social frictions and assures economic development. But the thing which is scary, very scary, it costs a lot, much more than any country can provide here in the region, even much more than when the donors are supporting, we can support. And how to overcome this? The only thing is that the policy is providing the legal framework and the incentives for the private sector to come in. And it requires, in addition, an enormous amount of awareness raising, new skills, new jobs. When we change from fossil fuels to renewables, we need huge amount of people who know how to maintain the new systems, how to establish them. And the next point, I think where India is already quite far, is to establish indeed also an industry which can produce the whole infrastructure, so that we are not depending on countries like Germany or other countries to import but develop it here. But we have to be aware of one thing. We have no choice. Climate change is accelerating faster and faster. We saw it the last 2 years, and now we are still at the point where the investments needed for the adaptation for climate change are higher than any investments. Now the increase of the investments is higher than all the investments worldwide into mitigation of climate change. So we have no chance than cooperating in this respect and really going forward. But the good thing is there is enough funding available. The only question is how to tap this funding, how to come to this funding, and I just already gave a hint. The most important thing is really to establish the skills, to establish the management from the policies, incentives, and to establish strategies for the decarbonization. And with this, I like very shortly come to just energy transition. What are the huge challenges, what I see here in the region? The first is the low energy efficiency. The challenge to increase the energy efficiency can save a lot of effort to really establish renewable energies or other forms of energy. Then the next huge challenge is the deployment of renewables. And here we have, of course, a lot of instruments which have to be very, very carefully and good established. I just remember the feed-in tariffs, or better conditions for net metering, so that we really have incentives to use net metering, to buy net meters, that the prices difference is enough high. Then one thing which I think will follow us the next years very much, this is the decommissioning of fossil fuel power plants. Okay, I make quicker. This one is indeed something where we don't find a solution, because many fossil fuel power plants has just come into operation and have locking capital for decades. So the next one, electromobility, private sector implication is important. And then, of course, all the funding. But concerning funding, I think we have now a huge chance with a new president and new structures of the World Bank. Maybe my neighbor can tell more about it. Ayab Banga, who just came into office. And then a huge task will be all the capacities and skill developments, about which I already talked, awareness raising, skills also on political level, on the level of the government, but of course also on the technical level. Then the lack of data is another big challenge for assessing especially future impacts of mitigation measures. And then one thing we should not underestimate, we as Europe are coming every few years with new concepts. I think 10 years ago, everyone came with nationally determined contributions. This is the solution for the next 100 years. 5 years later, we came with long-term strategies towards decarbonization. Okay, 200 years, the new strategy. And suddenly we are coming with a new thing, just transition, just energy transition. But to make a long story short, just transition includes nationally determined contributions. It's just much broader, includes also the long-term strategy, but is in this respect much broader. And with this, I would like to end my intervention. It is important really to consider this. And just last week, I made a presentation for the whole GIZ with almost 1,000 people online about this subject, because GIZ is just now starting to develop this subject very strongly. If there are any more questions about it, just get in contact with me concerning that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You did touch the most burning question in energy sector right now, which is transition, energy transition. And of course, for Bangladesh, financing human resources are very big challenges. Next 20 years, we need $1.5 to $1.7 billion each year to make the transition. That was a calculation that was published recently. And of course, efficiency, we have been talking about efficiency improvement a lot. We actually have improved efficiency quite a bit in industrial sector, especially private sector industry. And anyway, that's a different discussion. Thank you for your intervention. Now I'll request Professor Badrul Imam, who is an honorary professor, Department of Geology, University of Dhaka. Long history of teaching geology and contributing in the energy sector in Bangladesh. Professor Badrul Imam.
Thank you, Dr. Amin. Before I speak, may I kindly draw your attention to an error printed in this book. It says Professor Badrul Imam, former chairman of Petroleum. I never worked in Petroleum, though. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Okay. Now, in these meetings, we have been talking of very important issues facing the world today, and most of the speakers were talking about the renewables, and not only in this meeting, this kind of meeting nowadays always place renewables in above fossil fuels, replacing fossil fuels. That's the theme that's most talked about. But in reality, perhaps you know that the coal production in the world over the last 2 years, if you looked at it, the last year coal production was even higher than the year before. So the reality is different. We may talk about this renewables coming in and replacing fossil fuels. It's not that easy. It's not, perhaps not coming too soon. Coming down to Bangladesh. Now, Bangladesh is, perhaps you all know that it's an energy-starved country. It is starved of, it's shortage of fuel in every aspect, shortage of gas, shortage of oil, not much renewables coming up. So the emphasis of the government is probably more on the fossil fuels than the renewables. We did not see the renewable coming up as we wish to see, or as it has been projected that by 2040, 40% of the electricity will be generated by renewables. These kind of projections is probably going to fail unless the present pace of development of renewables drastically increase. So, the situation in the ground is more difficult than normally projected. Now, Bangladesh has been exploring for oil and gas for quite some time, and this exploration business is on the rise these days, and the emphasis is that the regional cooperations is probably more important in this respect. because you see, in terms of finding oil and gas, when we go for explore, the border area, like for example, in Bangladesh, we have the typical gas reserves around the border with India, in Tripura and Assam. So Indians have also explored the area of Tripura, Assam, probably more extensively than Bangladesh. So the regional cooperation is one thing that can benefit both the parties, especially the one who's newer. So in this respect, I think the explorers or exploration programs should have much more cooperations between the two parties. It will benefit them all. And regarding renewables, I think Bangladesh has still a long way to go to catch up with probably India or other renewable rich countries, because we are probably facing the energy crisis to that extent that we cannot probably leave the fossil fuel effort, finding fossil fuel effort apart. The crisis is overwhelming. Just few years ago, or probably last year, we had such a gas crisis that our factories couldn't work. There were frequent load shedding, and this was really very bad time. It's now overcome by supply of fossil fuels, gas and other things. So, I mean, it is very easy and comfortable to talk about renewables. Okay, we leave the fossil fuels and go with the renewables. But in reality, it is very difficult. It's coming or realize happening in easy terms. So, a country like Bangladesh and many other countries where energy is a very, difficult issues. You don't have energy on hand quite easily. It will be quite some time that these countries can leave fossil fuels and go for renewables. Thank you very much.
You're well ahead in terms of finishing your talk. It is indeed, in terms of country like Bangladesh, it is a major dilemma. It's not only Bangladesh, actually. If you look at India and China, it's a paradox. It's very interesting that China is #1 country who is rolling out renewable, the highest rate. At the same time, they're adding more coal-fired power plant, because the demand is growing so much, the renewable rollout cannot fulfill that demand. And to meet up the demand, they are bringing in coal. So a time will come when probably the renewable will catch up, and then they will get rid of the coal or the fossil fuel. Similarly, in Bangladesh, the rolling out of renewable is very slow. In last 15 years, we approved about 45 or 47 or 50 solar projects, renewable projects. And we have only 600 megawatt peak of solar power plant right now. So that has been the level of implementation or project realization.
In terms of percentage, is probably...
Percentage is very, very low in terms of total thing. But the electricity demand is growing. So the dilemma is like, should we wait and not serve the country, or not? Should we compromise the economic growth because we don't want to burn fossil fuel? So as a country and politicians, they just simply cannot afford to do that. They will have to have electricity supplied to the people and for development. But the effort has to be to improve and increase renewable as much as possible and reduce that gap. So Professor Badrul Imam has pointed out that. Again, this is not part of our regional integration of energy, but for our achievement, I believe that for our achievement of achieving our renewable goal, regional cooperation will play a big role, because India has huge area where they can produce renewable energy, and that can be sent to Bangladesh. So that will be a green energy for Bangladesh if it is produced in India. Last but not the least, our senior energy specialist from the World Bank, Mr. Mbuso Guafila, is that the correct pronunciation?
Yes.
All right. All right.
Very difficult for people to say it in Bangladesh, but you nailed it.
All right. Good. Please.
I might have to borrow this one. Doesn't? Oh, it's on. It's fine now. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Chair, for giving me the floor on this very important topic. I think I want to let you know that I'm quite fairly new in Bangladesh. I moved here about 3.5 months ago. I was previously based in Tanzania, and I come from Botswana, very small country in central southern Africa. And I want to use it as a case study to lay out the sort of foundation for the discussion on regional integration. So Botswana, sitting in the middle of southern Africa, is quite integrated from a transmission interconnectivity with the rest of its neighbors. It has interconnections with South Africa. It has interconnections with Zimbabwe to the north. It has interconnections with Namibia to the west. And beyond Zimbabwe to the north, the interconnections continue through Zambia all the way up to DRC, which is a fragile country, but they've been trading power with South Africa for the last 20 years since I've been working in the industry. What I'm trying to say here is just to cement some of the discussions or the areas that were discussed earlier, that regional integration does work, and I have seen it working. Actually, about 20, maybe 18 years ago, I was supporting the Southern African Power Pool. They were seconding some employees, and I was then working for a utility in Botswana. And there was a USAID study tour for South Asians who came to see a power pool, how a power pool is operated, how it was formulated in Southern Africa. I was then working in the planning committee of the Southern African Power Pool, and I met some of them. Not that I can remember the faces or the names, but yeah, we did have some good South-South exchanges with them back then. Now, fast forward to 2023, I come here, still working in power. I'm expecting that there would have been a lot of progress made in the integration, especially of electricity, especially in the BBN area, barring the other challenges that we have going up north of India, political barriers. I realize that there is far less interconnections than they should be. There should have been more progress in the last 20 years. And I've been spending the last few months wondering what could be the major reasons for this, looking at the differences between what I have seen in Southern Africa and in my past role in East Africa, formulating a new power pool, what is missing in the South Asia region. I realize that there are no enabling political treaties or political frameworks. First, I think without the underpinning political frameworks, there is no way that the technocrats and the business people can build cross-border, long-term investments such as the ones required for power, for transport, or for water. It becomes very difficult. And the first thing that I know there is SAC that I thought is missing is the absence of a secretariat or coordination mechanism that will facilitate the building of transmission lines, the building of any infrastructure that interconnects. I'll focus on power here. Such interconnections. If you don't have that, you can't have trade. You can't have market-based trade, day-to-day trading, because there is nobody who monitors and who manages the trades. And there has to be somebody who sits at some specific point representing all the participants from different countries and issuing out invoices, making sure that the rules are complied with by the different market participants, and doing investigations in the event of certain, or should there be events that require an investigation. I think that is lacking. I have seen that there are interconnections between Bangladesh and India, for example. They are very point-to-point, right? They are specific to one supplier sending power towards Bangladesh. And I think there is opportunity to scale up that based on the existing trade relationships. So I have been, at the World Bank, I've been looking at see what analytics have been done. The bank has done one piece of analytic recently. It's still under review. And they realized that the existing interconnections between India and Nepal and Bhutan and Bangladesh, because of a lack of a wider multilateral sort of trade arrangements, they were underutilized by $1.2 billion. And then the analytics went further to say if there is regional electricity trade in the BBIN only, by 2025, trade volumes would potentially reach 68 billion. And that will lead to savings of over 17 billion in terms of deferred capital investments and savings in fuels. And a country like Bangladesh would benefit significantly in the summer, as some of the earlier speakers said, by importing renewable energy from Nepal, from Bhutan, through the India grid to meet its demand. So I realize that I'm running out of time. There's a lot more that I can share in the area, but I'll pause. I think there will be opportunity for questions subsequent to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guafila. I know you already have the experience of regional integration and cooperation, and you could say much more. I hope there will be questions from the audience where you can probably have your opportunity to make comments.
Dr.
Yes, Mr. Gafur.
My name is Gafur. I'm Director Abdul Manam Economic Zone Limited, and also I was Executive Director to American Chamber of Commerce in Bangladesh for a long time. Congratulations all the panelists. It's a wonderful program. First of all, I feel that all the members of SAERC should be recognized and respected and for harmonious development of any association. I have two questions, one to Dr. Shankar and Mr. Kaniewski, and anybody can reply that. Dr. Shankar, you have mentioned that what is important is to build regional trust and political will. By this, I thought that there are some deficiencies in this area. I would like to request if you can elaborate on this, what you have in your mind. This is number one. Number two, if you look at the sentence here, reframing South Asian regional cooperation in the new context, I mean that we need to redesign this with the new realities. My question to all panelists, if you would like to answer, how would you like to compare the present status with the when it was born with the objectives? And also, how would you like to compare SAARC with ASEAN? And the last question to Professor Badrul Imam, an expert in this area, all are the experts. Bangladesh has done a wonderful job in the areas of energy development, but even then, we realize when there is no electricity, when there is load shedding, then we can really feel that how important is this for us. My question to you, what do you think if you, there could be many challenges, but I would appreciate if you could just tell us about 3 major challenges in this area. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, Dr. Tamim, I have 2 questions. One is political and... No, it's not work.
Can you please identify yourself?
Yeah, my name is BUET from Sri Lanka. I'm the Secretary General and CEO of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce. I'm no expert in energy, but a little bit of understanding. I have 2 questions. One is political and controversial. Second thing is about the energy generation. I'll take the second one, which is the energy generation first, keeping the controversial ones for the second. We all spoke about energy generation in terms of renewable as well as fossil fuels. But I believe we skipped on the area of waste to energy. Waste to energy is a thing where we have 2 advantages of primarily of creating energy, generating energy. Second thing of the advantage is that it's cleaning the environment. Second one, the political and the controversial one, is that it's a brilliant idea of countries within a region of sharing energy. But with the recent experiences that we have seen, the real lifetime experiences that we have seen in another region, especially in Europe, where gas is being supplied and that is being taken as a political tool. How we could avoid such situations taking place, because anything could happen. We may have agreements, we may have bilateral agreements, but who knows, anything could happen.
Good, very good question actually, the second one. The first one I can answer, I'll just tell you. This waste to energy is more a waste management issue than an energy production. So that's why when you are talking about energy generation, waste energy is not considered as a major solution. It's more as a waste management issue. Lady in red.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me the floor. I am Benuka Firdousi, Senior Research Fellow from Bangladesh Institute of International and Strategic Studies, BIISS. I have 2 questions to 2 panelists. My first question is to Mr. Guafila from World Bank. Taking you from the observation of the respected chair, that if we summarize the situation of energy cooperation in South Asia in one line, it is that, I mean, India sits in the center of South Asia, and there is, if I can say, India is less interested, have been less interested in such cooperation. India has always promoted for bilateral cooperation instead of multilateral cooperation, but the scenario is changing, I would say. As our chair has also mentioned, that India has changed its rule of regional energy trade in 2019, and slowly that is progress is going. My question is to Mr. Guafila is that in the changing geopolitical scenario of the Indo-Pacific, we know that the big powers are trying to bring the small powers on their side. So capitalizing this geopolitics, can we capitalize this change geopolitical scenario to increase the energy cooperation in South Asia? And my second question is Dr. Bodrul Imam sir. Yes, we have many challenges in terms of renewable energy in Bangladesh, but my question is, should Bangladesh start preparing for this transition? We know there are many challenges, but my concern is that if we don't start the preparation now, should we be left behind when it was time to depend more or solely on renewable energy? And what should Bangladesh's preparation and what preparation Bangladesh has made so far? What was the Bangladesh's achievement in this regard in preparing itself for this transition? That was all from my side. I thank the panelists for their wonderful presentation and looking for the answers. Thank you.
I think I will allow the panelists to answer, and then we'll go again for the questions. Okay? Dr. Shankar, I think there were two. One is political trust, and the other one was redesigning and SAARC-ASEAN comparison. Just briefly.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think building regional trust and political will, you mentioned about what is going on in my mind, but yeah, I think it's very obviously in the earlier sessions also is what it was discussed. The SAARC summit is not taking place since so many years. So that is one of the obvious example, yeah. And of course, BBIN is countries within the SAARC, so it's okay. In the SAARC charter, there is a provision we can do some bilateral or quadrilateral cooperation. But again, there is a new picture coming, is a BIMSTEC, yeah, because BIMSTEC includes the countries which are not in the SAARC. So, so these, I'm not saying it's a lack of trust, but the reasons for coming, these new organizations are coming, maybe there is some gap in the trust or something like that. Otherwise, why we are creating so many new institutions, yeah? So that's why that's I want to mention about the regional trust and the political will. And also, as one of the profession mentioned, in the Bangladesh, we cannot rule out the fossil fuel, yeah? So that's also what is the priority of the government of that country. In that way, the regional cooperation on this electricity sector, energy sector is, so this is just very briefly I mentioned about this. What was the next question? Sorry. I think this was also discussed in the morning. Like in ASEAN also there are many conflicts going on among them, but still they are good in for the regional cooperation in the energy sector. So I think it's we should be the conflict and the cooperation in these sectors should be somehow, it's like one should not impact the others. The cooperation should go in one way, irrespective of what the country's situation is, a bilateral, something like that. So that is the one example I want to highlight. And also in the ASEAN, there is a dedicated regional center for the energy. So such type of institution is missing in our region. So that two things I want to highlight. Thank you.
Very briefly, in terms of, ASEAN, the impression is that ASEAN is much more developed than the SAARC region. It is not. The value of trade currently, if I'm not, is below 8 gigawatt. Yeah, in comparison to BBIN or SAARC, it's even less. Yeah, based on the figures I have. Yeah. Secondly, you have a similar situation there with this major power, Indonesia, surrounded by smaller countries. Yeah, the conflict are very similar. Yeah, it's not the issues they have conflict is a bit too much. Conflict. It is not that we should look, of course, learning from other region is always good, but I think ASEAN in terms of energy cooperation shouldn't be the role model. Yeah, there are other regions that have progressed on an institutional level and in terms of trade volume, where we could look into it. Yeah, and as I mentioned at the beginning, that's the driver, the main driver, or the impediment in the past was the political will. But if you have this major power within BBIN with India, and that is willing to foster a cooperation, to go into, at least at this stage, trilateral, there is a possibility to expand that in the future. And as India is also looking towards Southeast Asia in their strategic approach, and that's the reason why they have supporting now since 1 or 2 years extensively the BIMSTEC. This is the path we could take without, as I mentioned, excluding the other South Asian countries in the long term, of course. And by the way, we have a SARC Energy Center in Islamabad. Yeah, there is an energy center of SARC. We have the BIMSTEC Energy Center hopefully soon in Bangalore, but it's not about having an institution, it's how this institution functions, and that was missing in the past.
Mr. Ganowski, will you comment on
the European question?
the cooperation being used as a tool of war?
I can do so. And honestly, so thank you very much for this question, because I think it's very important and as well super smart. And I don't think it's so controversial, honestly, because I mean, of course, you can take, I would say, don't think about the what if in the region here, because I mean, this is worst case scenario. But of course, think about other things like weather extremes, I would say stability of the grid in general. I mean, this is still a problem in every energy grid. Or for example, terrorism. So we don't have to think about that someone in the sub-region doesn't go along with someone else in the sub-region, but I mean, there is many more other causes. And of course, I mean, the what if shouldn't prevent that we are going further in multilateral cooperation, definitely not. But what you need as well, and I totally agree with you, because I mean, this was something which was in between the lines, you need as well some kind of resilience on the national level, definitely. And I mean, this is a model like it is functioning everywhere else, where you've got these days a very huge power grid and energy sharing. So I mean, cooperation doesn't mean that one says, okay, now we are not energy producing anymore and we are buying energy from another one, because sure, then the possibility that you're taken hostage by some external event is very high. But I would say these energy cooperation, like the potential is lying here in the sub-region, is something so special and super important that you should do this on the one hand, definitely. But on the other hand, for example, in strengthening green alternatives as well. I mean, if you're looking in the region, and some were pointed out today, where these days green energy is delivered to other countries in the sub-region, saying, of course, we can buy energy from one part of the sub-region, but on the other hand, we've got as well some kind of resilience left in the worst case scenario. So it's not something from my point of view. I mean, as someone who is from Europe and from Germany, I would say that's a very short answer. Don't put all your eggs into one basket. And this is something what we learned, definitely. But I think on the other hand, I mean, and this you have seen as well in Europe, it's possible. I mean, if we would have thought a bit more about some kind of energy resilience before this conflict started, you see we used, I mean, it was 4 to 5 months to make Germany completely energy resilient, even though the pipeline was I'm searching for a diplomatic word, was not longer able to deliver. So, and it is possible. And I mean, we wouldn't have had all the discussions in Europe and in Germany beforehand if we would have thought a bit as well about alternatives for very critical times.
Sir Badrul Imam, if you can comment on renewable, what is your opinion? That
Well, before the renewable, there was one question from him about the reason of why, what are the challenges? Yes, you see the
Challenges to realize the full potential of
okay. First of all, you see, the Bangladesh is a country which is naturally very, very prospective for fossil fuels, oil and gas. It is known to the academician more than the people who are in practice. They often don't realize to that matter how rich it is theoretically, though. But the problem is that the challenge is that this has not been taken up as seriously. Why I'm saying this, Bangladesh drill 1 well per year, on an average. Presently, it's probably drilling more. But historically, the drilling activity or exploration activity have been very little. Should that change, I would think that Bangladesh will be very, very, the gas resources will come up very largely. Why? Why it's not, well, that question is very difficult for me to answer because I have been trying to struggle with some other people like Professor Tamim, Professor Ijaz sitting there. We always have been talking about this, why don't you explore? So I think at one point, the government must realize that the way has to change. It has to go faster and it has to jump into the ocean. The Bay of Bengal and the onshore, lot of gas is there. We can certify that. So I think things are changing now. The exploration activities are being planned in a more rigorous way than before. So hopefully this will change. I mean, you'll see gas coming up in probably a few hours, 5 or 10 years time. So in that respect, we are optimistic, not pessimistic actually. Was there any other question?
What do you think about our preparation for renewables? Should we?
Oh, I see, yes. The renewable. You see, I didn't say that the renewables is not coming up at all. There has been works and progress in renewables, though, but I was probably pessimistic in the sense that if you compare with neighbors, say India, the way India is moving fast with renewables, we are way far behind. I mean, way lower than the pace of development with respect to renewables. Because renewable has a very good prospect in Bangladesh. I mean, the amount of sunshine we get, and also the offshore wind, coastal wind, these are the parameters which is very good for renewables. So this potentiality has to be harnessed. I think this slow pace of development will change, and we have this potential to our benefit in near future.
Okay.
Thank you.
Professor.
I think some of the issues, I'll introduce myself first. I'm Rohini Kamal. I teach at BRAC University. I think some of the issues with Bangladesh's energy is actually because of investment costs and the high investment costs, but that also I think is related to the requirements of integrated energy grid. To have high voltage transmission systems, distribution and transmission and distribution is the one issue, I think, one lacking. It was sort of mentioned, but perhaps since we do have financiers like the World Bank here, perhaps there could be some comment. And also, of course, we have partners like from Germany as well. So some of the financing aspects of an integrated grid or a smarter grid that allows both the renewable issue to be solved, but also the integration issue to be solved. One point in here is that one of our fast transmission lines in Bangladesh has been financed by AIIB, which is headquartered in Beijing. So even beyond the region, once we have partners like China that I think can play a very important role in what's happening in Pakistan, Afghanistan, or Bangladesh, and perhaps leveraging that interest in economic activity can be used, to enhance our transmission capacity. So maybe that's my question of how do development partners and financiers see their role in the transmission capacity?
Thank you, Felix. Thank you, Professor Tamim. I'd like to thank our Afghan friend. And you very rightly pointed out that how important it is when we talk about integration, and particularly South Asia. And quite rightly you pointed out also about how integration and regionalism has been hostage to regime centricism. But that is a reality, and I guess we have to face it. But at the same time, when you were talking about the sub-regional corporations, you did mention that you do expect that, or your expectation is that it would spill over into regional cooperation in order to move towards integration. So given the regime, I mean, this is something I'm throwing it to the panel, that given the regime centricism and the politics, that is in South Asia, do you really see a prospect of sub-regionalism spilling into regionalism? That is number one. Number two, when you talk about BBIN as a geoeconomics, strategy, do you, don't you see, my position would be that it is as much geopolitical as it is geoeconomic, because obviously if you have India as the pivotal factor over here, the China factor is there. Thank you.
You would like to talk? No.
Can I talk?
Professor Tamim, may I add?
No. It's okay, huh? So let me see how best I can contribute. You see, my concern is more on comments, rather expecting people to surely answer me. They may or they may not, you see. But I will remain on this
Please
topic.
be brief.
Yeah. Yeah, you see, taking the advantage of a benefit that World Bank is here, FES is here, I want to keep my mind. Basically, I am also in research of power sector in Pakistan, and we have done a lot of research. What I would like to consider is that we are talking about towards an integrated energy grid. For what? Our objective should be that you are supplying energy at lesser cost than the country which is producing, which is receiving. When we talk about trade in goods, it is also a similar story. Connectivity saves the cost. Similarly, when we talk of investment or services sector. Having said so, first of all, on a point of information, I would say that in the first para it is written that Pakistan is included, is facing severe energy crisis. No, sir, it's not like that. We have installed capacity of 41,000, and we never exceeded maximum peak of 25,400. The only problem is that, which I think World Bank World Bank is working in Pakistan. I think that all the South Asian, countries which we are talking about, they are actually hostage or victim of highly inefficient systems, you see. One thing in power system, because you are also in the petroleum and all that, it is called merit economic order, that which power station should come on the grid first, which is more efficient, which has to be efficient. The World Bank should focus. I have a research that alone in Pakistan, 23 to 27% they can improve if we are adopting merit economic order and stopping those units which have less than 39 to 38% efficiency. Now, this point I'm clearing about Pakistan. Another thing, what you have written in the 1, 2, 3, third para, South Asian sub-regional economic cooperation can play a significant role in regional energy trade by improving interconnections to access large-scale industry and large-scale electricity and natural gas sources. Now, this point actually relates to, again, World Bank rightly said, the man from World Bank,
that it is the political treatment and the framework, you see. Now, that means that all the countries, firstly, have to be, I must say, focused, recommended, and directed to check their own systems. Until unless interconnectivity is not possible, you see, for example, in Pakistan, we have fourth largest coal reservoirs, 183 billion tons, you see. So we are also thinking that we should use, we should be as good in using coal as India is using, you see. We are using maybe 1/100th of the coal which India is using. And two of the cities in Pakistan, the second biggest city, Lahore, it's no more motorable for 2 months, you see. So you can imagine how much economic loss should be there. So when we are talking about, you also talked about coal, and you are also optimistic to say that we have a big potential. And then your big potential is blocked by a question, why? And you cannot also answer the why. So we in Pakistan also have many whys. We are still trying to resolve it. So my proposition would be that you are here, FES is there. First of all, this integration is in absolute term is not workable unless the systems in the countries, whether you are going to sub-regional, though I'm really offended whenever I hear that from regional to sub-regional. I don't know, then it will be a micro-regional, and I don't know when it will be an individual country. So I'm really not feeling comfortable, because since 1997, the group of experts formed, and I don't want to give more comments on that. So I think better I'm saying you are here, you should think about each, and even in the small regional, first of all, the countries themselves should come up with the affordability, and then when you integrate, it should create further affordability. You see, that is the way how you can create a competitive index, how you can improve the competitive index. So I think I should stop here, because I'm also conscious that maybe the chair will say, okay, stop it. So before that he says stop it, I will stop it. Thank you very much.
Okay, I will request Mr. Gofila to respond regarding the financing.
Obviously, I mean, the World Bank. The World Bank does support our partners, which are country partners in many ways, and regional integration is one of the priority areas that we are focusing on, to the extent that we have a regional integration country management unit, so we call it, just similar to the country management unit that we have in Dhaka, which looks after Bangladesh and Bhutan. We have one that looks after regional integration, not only in energy, but in water, in transport, and in other sectors. That shows how well we prioritize that. So what we do, we do knowledge pieces, we do analytics, where we are able, as I said earlier, to determine what are the potential benefits that accrue from an integrated, for example, BBIN market, where I said it shows that in 2022-2023, there was potential for $1.2 billion savings that were unrealized, because there is no trade, there is no multilateral trade, it's bilateral, it's India trading with each of the 3 countries in the BBN area. So, and we also, based on this analytics, it is estimated that if trade is to be facilitated, by 2035, the trade will build up to 68 billion. And the countries participating as a group, sometimes we don't single out who will benefit what and how, but as a region, there will be savings of over 17 billion due to deferred capital investments in generation, because you can benefit from your neighbors, and there's that diversity in demand profile and other things, such that you could use your neighbor's generation capacity at peak because they are already on the off-peak and or they don't need it at that time, and these kind of things. So there are lots of benefits to be realized from that. So we do that as well. And then another thing that we do at a technical or commercial level is we also help the countries to build up agreements. We can support them on that, on how they can run an integrated regional energy market. Rules, we can help them to set up operating rules. This is more like on the regional institutional capacity building level. We also could do such support, what we call assessments within the different member countries to figure out what investments would be needed in terms of soft and hardware investments. For example, some countries might need AGC, they might need to enhance their protection and control and communication systems and those kind of things. We are very much supportive of that. And then when it comes to the actual primary investments, largely in the region, this has been publicly financed. Yeah, but we also look at coming up with new investment modalities, perhaps using the private sector, and we provide de-risking instruments for private sector to invest, for example, in transmission lines, and these are long-term, with long-term agreements with some governmental support. We do that, and we can also at generation level, we realize that the public does not have a sufficient large enough purse to finance everything. We also have de-risking instruments, and we use our halo effect sometimes to crowd in private sector investors and bilateral investors by using some support from our sister companies such as IFC, who can invest in debt and equity, and MIGA, who can provide political support guarantees. And we also do some, for example, currency convertibility is a big issue nowadays in the region. We can provide hedging instruments against that. So those are the kind of things I provide. I think I did that in a more indirect way without answering a specific question, but I think I have covered.
Okay, thank you.
Mm.
We have actually run out of time. Got just 5 minutes. I'll try to summarize. I know you had something to say about regionality, but I think sub-region is still better than regional, or nothing. So if 4 countries can benefit, 4 countries can benefit. No, there is no need to micro-regional, because you are growing from bottom up. You go to sub-regional only when you have your own necessity or your own demand fulfilled.
Chair, I need to make a comment now.
Okay, sure.
In order to, I mean, as I agree with you, it's better to have a sub-regional cooperation at this point of time. It is evident, yeah. I met you in 2016. We had a brief discussion, yeah, on cooperation, if you may recall, with Ambassador Kakachil upstairs, yeah, in this other hotel. I mean, we are still there, yeah, with SARC. Let's be realistic. But look, the concept, I mean, what I think, currently we have a silo, I mean, we have a line between 2 countries on the one side and the rest of South Asia on this side. If this side, BBIN, can work together, plus Sri Lanka, yeah, where there is an idea of interconnection between India and Sri Lanka. If they can work at this point of time, that's fine. Look, on the other side, we have this connectivity with Central Asia. We have CASA 1000, supported by the Verba, under implementation, yeah, between Central Asian countries, Afghanistan and Pakistan. We have still the idea of TAP, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, which is supported by EDB. And then we have this long story of TAPI, okay? Just this is gas, but it's at a certain point, let's have this vision, let's be hopeful, yeah, still. If the situation changes, then connecting these two systems, if Pakistan and India are ready, one day, let's hope, then this is a very easier than wait until day X that these two countries come up with a solution, yeah, on a bilateral level so that we can cooperate. So it's better to have these two sub-regional, it's just an idea I'm sharing, than waiting for cooperation on a SARC level.
Thank you. Actually, you know, we are not coming from regional level to micro level. We are going from micro level to regional level. That is the idea. Not a top-down, but a bottom-up approach.
There's a request from Mr.
Oh, please.
Sorry, I kept a bit silent because I was not requested, but I need to do three short remarks. The first one is support from the partners in renewable energies and clean energy. We have the big Team Europe initiative on green energy transition, which encompasses more than 100 million of investments from the EIB. 400 was just committed, but we have in addition this was committed last week by Sheikh Hasina. This is clear. And in that respect, we estimated also the renewable energy potential. And it's far more than even than Bangladesh currently uses. For instance, 35 gigawatt just for offline, for offshore wind, a lot for photovoltaic, and a lot more. And if the subsidies on fossil fuels would be reduced, and the incentives for net metering would really be incentives, and all the solar panels on the roofs would also have converters, I think the story would be totally different, and the evolution could be exponentially. We are very much supporting on this, and we will continue cooperating on this. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending today's session. I especially thank the panelists. Just to summarize what I have heard, that political willingness is the number one barrier, in fact, in regional cooperation. Once we are politically aligned, at least in terms of our benefit, I think we can go ahead and expand this cooperation to a much larger scale and to the benefit of the people. The next one, in my opinion, is the technical, the infrastructure, lack of infrastructure and lack of, which is again driven by political will, because without financing you can't have that. So once you have the political will and then you have the infrastructure, then I'll just give one example. India has a wholesale market, and Bangladesh brings in 1,000 megawatt from Indian wholesale market. It is the Indian traders who bid in India in their wholesale market. They buy that power and they deliver it to us. And India has said that we could take part in that bidding and buy power from their wholesale market, provided we have the infrastructure to bring in the electricity here. So if the regional market, there is a wholesale market regional, every country can go and buy, and every country can sell their electricity there as well, once the infrastructure is ready. So that is the future vision of level of cooperation we can go into. But there are lots of barriers, of course, in the meantime. And but I think it was a good discussion. We did touch many of the issues. On the side, we also talked about renewable energy. We talked about the dilemma of economic growth, fossil fuel, and renewable energy pace of implementation. And Someone is taking note, right? There? Okay. So I'm sure their CPD will have that. And we'll have a recommendation out of this discussion, and we'll circulate that. Yes. Thank you very much for attending to this session. Thanks.
Would like to take everyone's attention and give a short announcement that the plenary session 2 is going to be started in the ballroom very soon. We are requesting you to join the plenary session 2 at the ballroom. Thank you.
Yeah, I know, you told me. You told me 2016 in this session that Bangladesh is even thinking to join CAPI. Of course, we applied. Then